Artificial sweeteners can lower the sugar in your coffee, yogurt, or soft drink. But after 60, that does not automatically make them a healthier choice. The real question is not, is this sweetener good or bad? It is, what is it replacing? How much are you using? And how is your gut responding? I'm Dr. Claire Bennett, and today I want to make this much simpler. Because there are three very different things people often put into the same sugar-free basket. High-intensity non-sugar sweeteners such as sucralose, aspartame, saccharin, acesulfame, potassium, and stevia. Sugar alcohols such as sorbitol, maltitol, and xylitol. And ordinary sugar hiding behind a product that simply looks healthier. Those are not the same thing. And if you are over 60, that distinction matters. Let's begin with the most practical question. Is an artificial sweetener better than sugar? Sometimes, yes. If you normally drink 2 large, sugary soft drinks every day and you replace them with a zero-sugar version, you may dramatically reduce the amount of added sugar and calories coming from those drinks. High-intensity sweeteners are extremely sweet in tiny amounts and contribute little or no sugar. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration lists approved sweeteners such as aspartame, sucralose, saccharin, and acesulfame potassium, and sets acceptable daily intake levels intended to represent amounts that can be consumed daily over a lifetime without expected safety concerns. The FDA's current AD is 50 milligrams per kilogram of body weight per day for aspartame, 5 for sucralose, and 15 for saccharin and acesulfame potassium. That does not mean you should try to reach those amounts. An AD is a safety ceiling, not a nutrition target. And this is where people get confused. Approved as safe does not mean proven to improve long-term health. Those are two different questions. The World Health Organization made that distinction very clearly. Its 2023 guideline on non-sugar sweeteners was not a toxicology ruling and did not replace existing safety limits. Instead, WHO looked at whether using non-sugar sweeteners helps with long-term weight control or reduces the risk of chronic disease. Its recommendation was conditional and suggested that non-sugar sweeteners should not be relied on as a strategy for long-term weight control or disease prevention. That recommendation applies to the general population, but explicitly excludes people with pre-existing diabetes. The guideline also noted that some of the apparent long-term risks in observational studies could be influenced by who was using sweeteners in the first place. So here's the first important message. A zero-sugar drink can be a useful step away from a high-sugar drink. But it is not the same thing as making water, unsweetened tea, plain coffee, milk, or another minimally sweetened drink your everyday default. Think of artificial sweeteners as a bridge for some people, not necessarily the destination. Now let's talk about the gut, because this is where the headlines become dramatic. You may have heard that artificial sweeteners destroy your microbiome. That statement goes far beyond what human research can currently prove. Human studies are mixed. One of the most discussed trials was published in Cell in 2022. Researchers studied 120 healthy adults who were assigned to consume saccharin, sucralose, aspartame, or stevia for 2 weeks at doses below acceptable daily intake levels, with control groups for comparison. The researchers found that each sweetener altered aspects of the participants' microbiome or metabolome, but the metabolic effects were not identical. Saccharin and sucralose were associated with impaired glycemic responses in that experiment, while the effects were highly individual and appeared linked to each person's microbiome. That is important, but it is not the whole story. A 2019 randomized, double-blind study gave 17 healthy men 780 milligrams of sucralose per day for 7 days and compared them with 17 men receiving placebo. The investigators found no significant change in glycemic control, insulin resistance, or the gut microbiome at the phylum level. Another randomized trial published in 2021 tested high-dose saccharin at the maximum acceptable intake for 2 weeks. In that study, researchers did not find significant changes in glucose tolerance, microbial diversity, microbial composition, fecal metabolites, or short-chain fatty acids. And a 2020 randomized crossover trial involving 17 healthy adults found no measurable changes in gut microbiota or short-chain fatty acids after 14 days of realistic daily exposure to aspartame or sucralose. Do you see the pattern? The science is not saying all sweeteners damage the gut. It is saying something much more interesting and much more useful. Different sweeteners may behave differently. Different doses may matter. Different people may respond differently. And many of the human trials are short and involve younger, healthy adults. That last point is especially important for this channel. When we talk about people over 60, we have to be careful not to pretend that research in a 30-year-old automatically tells us what will happen in a 72-year-old. Direct sweetener and microbiome trials focused specifically on adults over 60 remain limited. At the same time, research in older populations shows that the gut microbiome itself changes with age and varies widely between individuals. A 2025 metagenomic study of 367 adults aged 60 to 94 found substantial age-related differences in gut microbial patterns, reminding us that the older gut is not one uniform ecosystem. That means the most sensible advice after 60 is not panic, it is observation. Let me give you a real-life example. Suppose Margaret is 68. She stopped putting 2 teaspoons of sugar into each of her 3 daily coffees. She now uses a small amount of sucralose. From a sugar standpoint, that is a meaningful reduction. If she feels well, eats a varied diet, has no persistent bloating or diarrhea, and is not using sweetened processed foods all day long, there is no good evidence that she needs to fear that small change. Now imagine Robert, who is 74. He drinks diet soda at lunch, uses 3 sweetener packets in coffee, eats sugar-free cookies in the afternoon, and finishes the evening with sugar-free candy. He complains that his stomach feels swollen, he has urgent loose stools, and he assumes it is simply age. When we read the labels, the story may be very different. The coffee sweetener might contain a high-intensity sweetener. The cookies may contain maltitol. The candy may contain sorbitol. Now we are dealing with multiple categories of sweeteners, not one. Sugar alcohols deserve their own section because they are often responsible for symptoms that people blame on artificial sweeteners in general. Health Canada lists sugar alcohols, also called polyols, such as sorbitol, isomalt, lactitol, maltitol, mannitol, and xylitol as sugar substitutes. Health Canada also notes that consuming too much can cause gastrointestinal discomfort and laxative effects because these compounds are poorly absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract. This can show up as bloating, gas, cramping, loose stools, or a sudden need to get to the bathroom. For an older adult, those symptoms are not just inconvenient. Frequent diarrhea can make hydration harder. Urgency can increase the risk of rushing to the bathroom at night. And if someone already has a sensitive bowel, the quality of life effect can be significant. So if your stomach became unpredictable around the same time you started eating more sugar-free candy, protein bars, cookies, chewing gum, or low-carb desserts, check the ingredient list before blaming your age. Look for words such as sorbitol, maltitol, mannitol, xylitol, isomalt, lactitol, and erythritol. Then ask a simple question. Did my symptoms begin after this product became a daily habit? That clue is often more useful than arguing about whether one sweetener is universally good or bad. Now let's separate gut symptoms from gut microbiome changes. These are not the same thing. If maltitol gives you gas, that does not automatically mean it has damaged your microbiome. If sucralose changes the relative abundance of certain microbes in a research study, that does not automatically mean the change is harmful. The microbiome is complex. A change is not automatically an injury. We need to know what changed, whether the change persists, whether it affects function, whether it changes symptoms, and whether it changes meaningful health outcomes. This is why I would be very cautious with social media videos that show a picture of bacteria disappearing and then tell you one packet of sweetener is killing your gut. That is not how good human evidence works. Now we need to talk about blood sugar. If you have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, replacing added sugar with a low or no-calorie sweetener can reduce the immediate glucose load from that food or drink. That can be useful, but it does not turn the rest of the product into a healthy food. A sugar-free cookie can still be made with refined starch. A zero-sugar dessert can still be low in protein and fiber. A diabetic-friendly snack can still encourage constant grazing. So when you are choosing between two foods, do not ask only, how many grams of sugar? Ask 4 questions. How much fiber? How much protein? How processed is this food? And will it actually keep me satisfied? For an older adult, that matters because protecting muscle and maintaining adequate nutrition become increasingly important. You do not want to cut sugar by replacing real food with a cupboard full of low-calorie sweetened products. Here is a better approach. If breakfast is sweetened yogurt with 18 grams of added sugar, you might switch to plain Greek yogurt and add berries, cinnamon, and perhaps a small amount of sweetener if you need it while your taste adjusts. Now you have changed more than the sweetener. You have changed the entire nutritional pattern. You may get more protein, more control over sweetness, and a food that gradually teaches your palate that breakfast does not need to taste like dessert. That is very different from simply swapping one ultra-sweet product for another. This brings us to what I think is the most underappreciated issue: your sweetness threshold. If every drink, yogurt, snack, and dessert tastes intensely sweet, your palate never gets a chance to reset. WHO's guidance emphasizes reducing the overall sweetness of the diet rather than depending on non-sugar sweeteners as a lifelong weight control tool. You do not need to make food joyless. You can simply turn the sweetness down 1 notch at a time. If you use 2 packets in tea, try 1.5 for a week, then 1. If you drink 3 diet sodas a day, replace 1 with sparkling water and lemon. If you eat sweetened yogurt every morning, mix half sweetened and half plain. These are small changes, but small changes are often easier to keep after 60 than a sudden rule that says, never eat sugar again, or never touch sweeteners again. Now, who should pay closer attention? First, people with persistent bowel symptoms. If you regularly have bloating, diarrhea, abdominal pain, or urgency, look closely at polyols and other ingredients in sugar-free foods. Second, people who are consuming sweeteners all day long. 1 sweetener packet in morning coffee is a very different exposure pattern from sweetened drinks, bars, desserts, gum, and tabletop sweeteners from breakfast until bedtime. Third, people with diabetes who are changing their diet while taking glucose-lowering medication. Do not assume that because a product is sugar-free, your medication plan should change. If your carbohydrate intake changes substantially or your glucose readings are shifting, discuss that with your clinician or pharmacist rather than adjusting medication on your own. Fourth, people with phenylketonuria must avoid or restrict phenylalanine and therefore need to pay specific attention to aspartame. Health Canada explains that aspartame contains phenylalanine and has specific labeling requirements for this reason. And fifth, anyone who is unintentionally eating less nutritious food because sugar-free has become the main definition of healthy. After 60, I would much rather see you eat enough protein, vegetables, legumes, whole grains if tolerated, fruit, healthy fats, and adequate fluids than chase a perfect 0 on the sugar line while your overall diet becomes poorer. So what is the practical hierarchy? Here is the simplest version. Your first choice most of the time is an unsweetened or lightly sweetened whole food pattern. Water. Plain or lightly flavored milk where appropriate. Coffee or tea with gradually less sweetness. Plain yogurt with fruit. Oatmeal with berries and nuts. Fruit when you want something naturally sweet. Your second choice, when it genuinely helps you reduce a large amount of added sugar, can be a low or no-calorie sweetener in modest amounts. Your third step is to monitor tolerance. Not with fear, with curiosity. Do you feel more bloated? Are your bowel habits different? Are you eating more sweet foods because the label says 0 sugar? Are you relying on several sweetened products every day? And your fourth step is to read the ingredient list. Sugar-free tells you what is missing. The ingredient list tells you what replaced it. That is the line I want you to remember. Sugar-free tells you what is missing. The ingredient list tells you what replaced it. If the replacement is sucralose or aspartame, that is one conversation. If it is maltitol or sorbitol and you are having diarrhea, that is another. If the food is mostly refined flour and fat, the problem may not be the sweetener at all. Now let me answer the title question directly. Are artificial sweeteners after 60 better than sugar, or are they a gut health trap? They can be better than a high intake of added sugar when they are used strategically. They are not proven to be a universal gut health trap. But they are also not a magic shield against diabetes, weight gain, or poor diet quality. The human microbiome evidence is mixed. Individual responses appear to matter, and direct evidence in older adults is still limited. So I would not tell a healthy 67-year-old to panic over one packet of sweetener, and I would not tell a 72-year-old with daily bloating and 3 servings of sugar-free candy that every sugar substitute is harmless for them. Context matters, dose matters, the specific ingredient matters, and your symptoms matter. If you want one change to start this week, do this. Choose the sweetened product you use most often. Read the ingredient list. Identify the actual sweetener. Then reduce either the amount or the frequency by about 1/4, without replacing it with a large amount of sugar. Give your palate time to adjust. And if you have ongoing diarrhea, unexplained weight loss, blood in the stool, severe abdominal pain, dehydration, or a major change in bowel habits, do not assume it is just the sweetener or just aging. Those symptoms deserve medical assessment. The goal after 60 is not to become afraid of sweetness. It is to become more deliberate about it. Use less added sugar. Use substitutes thoughtfully when they help. Pay attention to your gut, and build the rest of your diet around foods that actually nourish you. That is a much stronger strategy than choosing sides in the sugar versus sweetener argument.